Okay, so now I am working on a sketch art drawing here. And, opening the door for a conversation about the scam in Christianity. And so I'm going to kind of start on. I've got two, it's kind of like two faces here that I'm working on at the same time. And it's sort of the premise of Christianity when it comes right down to it. Let's see here. If I can get the eye, the eyeball of the man here. Okay, so let me get over into chat in case I get any. Let me get a little bit prepared here. I think I'm muted. Yeah. Just wanted to double check to make sure I'm muted there, because I don't want to be listening to myself. Okay, so I'm going to take. Okay, so I need to kind of figure out, well, let's stick his ear on here. Kind of like that. Okay, and so now on this part we've got, okay, so, oh gosh, I don't want to not leave myself enough room for a nose here. Okay. And so we've got to get the lips in here. Okay. And so he's got kind of a firm jawline like that. Okay, and so we've got to get the pupil of his eye in here like this. Okay, so I've got a little bit of reflection in the pupil like that. And I want to, he does have some little aging wrinkles right there. Little shadows in here in the ear area. Kind of like that. We could blend this part a little bit better than, I don't think I need his lips looking like a, like that exactly. Okay, so does anyone have any questions or anything related to good versus evil related to the religious scam that we often hear about and that is often utilized in various forms of manipulation of the mind, related to people's sentiment on orchestrating results of something that those who are, well, they're doing the manipulation is what they're doing. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Now, one of the biggest scams that I kind of think about is that when I was a kid, I loved Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. But now listening to him, he went in front of Congress and he actually said that he didn't like the children's programming, and that was being forced towards children related to manipulating kids. But yet, and he said he didn't like that kids were being manipulated, but yet that's what he used. He used that himself. And then later on, they said he was a pastor. How do people feel about that, I wonder? I know that, I myself as a kid, I liked watching Mr. Rogers, but at the same time, I didn't realize that he was using religion to manipulate parental sentiment and things like that. If that's what he was doing, but it's no different than what church does, really, is it? And Mr. Rogers had a long, long staying power, though, too, because of the fact that, he was kind of a gentle voice, and he had a way of describing things to people, that was in a gentle manner, in a kid-friendly way. And I don't recall him ever saying on the show, not once do I ever recall him saying on his show that he was a pastor. I don't remember that part, which is kind of funny, I think, because it was just on TV where people said that he was a pastor. So, and I don't know where that came about. I think that was maybe some transparency. So they were putting a pastor on TV. And so he said, I remember Mr. Rogers saying, though, that he had another daytime job that he had to go do. But, you can't apply for unemployment being a pastor, though, either. Okay, let's see if we can get some of this in here. Oh, that's pretty good. That's really pretty good. I like this. I like how this is turning out, actually. I like it a lot. Let's see. We could add a little bit more dark shadows in here like that. Get a little bit more wrinkles up in here like this. Okay, so I've got little, I like that. Okay. And, I've always made the analogy too. Religion is kind of similar to when cops, they said on TV that cops they do the good cop, bad cop routine sometimes. Now I know they do it on TV. I have no idea if they do it in real life or not, or same with anything, but, I have no idea. I've never been a cop and I don't know how they do business. They talk about, I don't know if they do good lawyer, bad lawyer. Oh, maybe they do. I don't know. Okay, so I'm not actually getting, let's see, I need to do this part again here. I need to erase because I'm not happy with what I've got going on here. Okay, so I'm going to take this up here. Anyone have, okay, we do have a couple of questions here that I'm missing. I am here. Who are we? Okay, Schooly3 Andus. Hello, Schooly3. Schooly3. If you guys are new, please remember to subscribe. So we've got Schooly3 here. And we're just having a little discussion here if you want to talk about your frustrations with the religious industrial complex. I don't know if I have enough room for the tongue in here. I might be able to make a smaller tongue because I've got to put some more teeth in here too. And I kind of want to squeeze the tongue in there, but either that or I can erase and put it up a little bit closer to the nose. That's what I could do. Okay, let me see here. I think I kind of want to get the tongue in there, and maybe I can skimp on the teeth. Okay, so tongue is kind of like, okay, so we've got it there. Now, okay, so now I want to get this big fang here. Okay, we've got that there. Now we've got some smaller teeth here. Smaller teeth. They're jagged teeth there like that. Okay. And so this is an image in my version of, you know, the good versus evil with the devil versus God. And so that's what I decided to take up here with the artwork because, you know, we see it all the time. Plus it's Halloween, I believe. I don't know if that's today or tomorrow. I know usually it turned into a celebration of a 2-day celebration more than one day, which for me that was fine when I was a kid. I mean, you can't beat that, turning Halloween into basically a 2-day celebration instead of one. I mean, there was a lot of Christian people who did not like Halloween. They just didn't. You know, the church folks did not like Halloween. Eventually, some of them, they started, you know, thinking, well, they wanted to do it at the church, you know, so they wanted to turn everything. Now, my church never did that when I was a kid. My church never took it in that direction. I think maybe they did later on because church noticed and realized that people weren't wanting to go anymore. And I think that when they went in that direction, they just decided that they wanted to do something to try to get people interested in going again, you know. And so this morning, oh, I have 2 things I need to share with y'all. So just this morning, there was this pastor in St. Louis I was listening to on the internet, and he was talking about the internet and content creators and how content creators aren't going to replace real life related to Christianity or something like that. And I thought, well, why in the world are you on the internet? You're using a content creation platform on the internet, and then you're trashing, you know, so it's more of the pastors doing what they do and trashing the spirit of people who make content creation on the internet. And so yesterday, there was another one. I was on this live stream. I wasn't literally on the live stream. I was just chatting on it because I do spend a lot of time chatting on other people's live streams too. And so I had another identity that I was using, and that's common, that I will use a different identity from time to time. And sometimes I do that just to see the direction that the channel will go. And so the day before, on this one specific channel, someone had used a name, and it's like, oh, this is interesting. It's very similar to another YouTube channel that I have. So I thought, okay, let me go use the name. And so I used it the next day. And so then the person, which was the moderator, I was just asking some questions, and the only questions I was asking was about the Bible. I was on topic. I was on topic the whole time. But I was asking questions about the Bible. And, but because of my name, so the moderator says, well, don't you think this is the same person from yesterday? And I wrote and I put, I'm not the same person from yesterday that was in here with that name. And I wasn't. I knew I wasn't. But this pastor, lo and behold, blocks me. He blocked me from his chat because he didn't like the questions I was asking. So the other person who had the same name was under the guise, they were asking questions about, they were talking about Allah and Muhammad and things like that. And this pastor was so uncomfortable related to talking about the Muslim religion and things like that. And so he was really upset. So he was like, he just would not tolerate anybody talking about the Muslim religion. So I had to bring it back around. So I went in under a third identity. I went in under a third identity that actually had Allah in the name. And so I was asking questions, but then I kind of was able to tone it down and disarm, I guess, his feelings. And I told him, I said, well, you know what? I said, I like to learn about the other religions and what they're doing and the direction they're going, because if I don't, how am I supposed to avoid them? If I don't listen to them a little bit every now and again and learn about the direction they're going, then I need to listen and hear the direction they're going so I know I can protect myself and avoid what they're teaching, because I don't want to be around that. And I said, I don't believe in Sharia law, and I don't believe in the Islam or the Muslim faith, even though I have that, a part of that, in my YouTube pseudonym. And he's like, oh, good, that makes me feel better. So basically, and the thing is, I really feel that way. I don't. But now, if I was someone who did believe in that, I just told him what he wanted to hear. That's all I did, was I just told the man what he wanted to hear to make him feel better. And so it's like, well, so what I did was, on my original channel, I just no longer, I decided I'm not going to listen to him anymore, because the thing is, he's spewing out that same sentiment that everybody talks about, of that he wants things his way or the highway. And so it's, well, it's kind of like the thing that YouTube shows from time to time. And I'm not going to repeat it. I'd like to, but I'm not going to repeat it. So YouTube shows this picture every once in a while of what some of these men are. And I think it's funny. I've actually drawn some of the pictures. They're kind of like cubism type sketches of images that pop up from time to time. And it's like, yeah, I know. It's exactly, I feel the same way. The algorithm knows, it feels the same way. I mean, it's impressive to think that AI is that powerful to be able to pick out the ones that and AI is a smarty pants and calls them I can use the last part of the words, something suckers. They're suckers. They're, a word I'm not going to repeat, suckers, is what AI is kind of alluding to with some of the advertising that pops up, and Google permits it too. So, I mean, it comes up quite a lot. So it's basically sort of a cubism type of a drawing that comes up, and it makes it look like something, So my thing, what I've said in chat before, is I've raised the issue, and I said, you know what? The way Christianity is being taught in the United States, it's no different than Sharia law. Oh my gosh. When I say that, that is throwing gasoline on a fire for Christians, for pastors. Absolutely. That's throwing gasoline on a fire. It's not my intentions to flame. It really isn't. I'm trying to have a real conversation with them. They don't want to have a real conversation. But when I say that Christianity, the way some of them teach it and the way they go about it is Sharia law, it's like they talk, okay, they say United States is a nation of immigrants. So what would make people in the United States think that Christianity is not Sharia law? Um, let's see, add a Q&A sticker. Let's see here. Add a Q&A sticker. Oh, let's see here. Maybe I can do that. Okay, let me see if I can add a Q&A. Let's see. Yeah, I'll do that. Do you think Christianity is Sharia law? Ask a question. Look. Wait a second. Start a Q&A. Wait a second. Okay. Start a poll. How about I do you think RISTIANIT is comparable to SHARIALAW, to Sharia, is comparable to Sharia law? Yes, no. Okay. Done. Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll stick you up there. And then, okay, let's see if we can get you back over here like this. Okay. Okay, let's move you over here. Oh, you're going to stay right there. Okay, you stay right there. And so we'll keep drawing. I like this image just like it is right here. So do you think start a poll? Okay, so it's still there. And so pastors are very, very sensitive. So I would have to say a lot of pastors actually are liberal. They belong on the lefty, whiny snowflake side of things. I mean, these are grown-ass men, too. They should know better. But they're threatened. They're threatened by bringing people into the United States. I've never objected, I've always been one. It's like, gosh, I was lucky to be able to live in another country. And I never felt hostilities from the people in Germany, even though we were told that the Germans didn't like us being there, which to me, it makes sense, So I just kind of stayed to myself most of the time, and didn't talk to the Germans a whole lot. Unless there was no way I could get to know them at all, because I didn't speak their language. And I'm thinking, gosh, if they feel hostilities towards America in that way, I mean, I didn't think about it much at the time. All I knew was that I was there, and we were told to just kind of blend in and not do anything obnoxious. Now we've got these migrants inside the United States right now who are doing a bunch of obnoxious things. I mean, that's all they're doing. They've come into the United States for some other reason. And so, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Hello, John Turk. Hi, John Turk. Do you like my devil versus God analogy here. That's what it is an analogy. Um, but and it's kind of based off of YouTube right now. It's the here and the now because of all these pastors and people who censor the First Amendment. And, you know, when I put in my opinion and I use my another pseudonym I have, and someone else has been in the day before asking very similar questions that I ask, and it's like, and these pastors just censor people. My goodness, it's like, it's insane. Hi, John. The white goddess. I know. Yeah, you can call me the white goddess. I mean, how can that be bad? It can't be, right? And so I just wanted to you know, it's Halloween too. And so I mean, we've always heard the saying of something being two-faced. This kind of depicts it, you know. But I'm using this more towards religion right now. Religion is a systemic type of influencing when it comes to yeah, it is being autonomous because they purge right along. That's what I've noticed. That a lot of these autonomous entities, they just purge right along, and they keep carrying the same sentiment. Now, the only one I've heard who sounded somewhat honest was Rachel Maddow. And I know a lot of people don't like her, but she did go in front of Congress and she told them, she says, you know what? She says, if I were you all, she says, I would not believe what I say on my TV show. That's what she said. And she says, so she was being honest in saying that a lot of things that she says on the show is not real. And so she's just saying things that she herself didn't believe. She herself just didn't believe. Okay. And so it's like I'm not all hyped up or anything or angry or anything related to getting censored. It's happened so much right now that I just feel nothing. I just feel a numbness when it happens. It's like I don't even feel anything towards the content creator. It's going to be one of those things in the future. It's like, well, okay, if you wanted to try to become a content creator at one time, why are you censoring all of the people who support you? That's the thing I'd like to ask, church. Church, if you're listening, why do you want to censor the people who want to ask you questions, who want to have an open dialogue with you? Why do you want to censor those people? You know, those of us on YouTube. Well, you know what it is? The ugly side of church, which is this right now. Church is in this side. Church is in the dark side of the soul right now. This is where church is at. Not over here. Church is this side. They're in the ugly because of the fact that they're losing their standing with influencing. They're losing their standing with money raising, and manipulation of the hearts and minds of the American people. And so my son actually did a good service when he told me about the hearts and minds theory. And it turns out to be true. And you know, and it's from other countries too, because he was when he said they want to manipulate the hearts and minds of the American public. And you know, so he knew what he was talking about. My son absolutely knew what he was talking about, especially being in the foreign country that he was in. He was in the Middle East. He understood that aspect and that side of manipulating the hearts and minds, and that comes out of countries, and it's on media too. That was a hard one to swallow, was media, you know, because of all people, we should be able to trust our media, right? We thought we could, but no, we can't. Hello, Adonia Marshall. Okay, so let me see if I can get more of. Okay, we've got some. You know, it's, yeah, I just don't feel a lot of trust right now amongst humanity. And especially with this stuff going on related to the benefits that have gone to the foreign nationals for political influencing. This is where the Democrats are at too. Now I know they said that, yeah, the political. I'm not just going to say one party. Both parties are on this side because this is the extreme side. I'm not going to say this guy looks like he could be in the center. Um, how could I have made? I would have had to have two devils on each side to express extremism. So now if I flip it around, let's flip it around like this, and what do we get? We get kind of an upside. Well, that looks pretty good as an upside down monster as well. So we could use it either direction to, if you play that left and right, or, well, north and south, the north and south monster of the totem pole. Um, you know, so, so I thought, yeah. So I was thinking today is an appropriate day because I believe today might be Halloween, or we're getting close there anyway. And, I'm not a fan of religion. I like to try to go to the religious places to talk about religion. That's why I'm not going into a church right now, because if I go into church, they're not going to want to listen. They're just going to want to preach at me. They're going to want to preach at me just like they're a TV set of some sort. And I don't want to hear that. I just don't want someone preaching at me a bunch of garbage that I don't want to hear, that I don't want to participate in the conversation. If I can't put my 2 cents in and talk about religion in the same way, Okay, here, so we're going to put a little bit of a shadow down here below his face. Kind of like that. Oh, that looks pretty good. Okay, I think we're gonna make some shadows right in here like this. Now, one of the stories that I remembered one of the pastors telling about, I think it's one of those common things. They're telling on themselves a little bit more and more as time passes. They were talking about the work being done in the church. And so one of the pastors, he said something to the effect, well, gosh, if it bothers you, go do it yourself. So he was referencing if the lawn needs mowed or something like that, for them to go do it. Well, the pastor don't want to do it. That's the problem. The pastor is asking everybody in the church to do the work, while the pastor does nothing. That's what's going on. And so one of the men I listened to, he was talking about the hedge clippers or something, or one of them complained about not liking how the hedges looked or something in front of the church. And so the only person to do the work there is the pastor. And that's kind of the same thing that happened with my ex-husband. He would complain. He would do the same thing that pastors were doing. He would say, "Oh gosh, the yard is looking kind of tall." And I'd be looking at it and thinking, well, go, if you think it's bad, you go do it yourself. That's what I'd think, because I knew the direction it would go if I said anything to him. So I would just ignore him and not do anything. And so then he would say something about it, and again. And so, sometimes I might mow, and then I would mow, and he's like, well, you missed part of the grass. And so it got to the point of, go do it by yourself. Just go do it by yourself. I'm now a pastor, yeah, they're going to have to do everything by themselves. I think because really most churches can barely afford enough for the pastor, let alone a church secretary. And so it sounds like they're losing standing in some senses, um, related to the direction of what churches are doing, that people are just not as interested anymore in participating and partaking in what they're doing, because another thing he did was he held up, the one pastor held up a penny. And he used an analogy of the side of a penny. He says he held up the side of the penny. And what the pastor said was, the side of the penny is the line that he walks. He says he doesn't go to heads or tails. He just walks the line of the Lincoln penny, on the side. He says, that's me. That's where I'm going to be at, is on that little line on the Lincoln penny there. I'm not going to heads or tails. So they're really, really indoctrinated and brainwashed, these pastors are, when it comes right down to their logic and what it is that they're preaching and how they interpret the Bible. And so when I ask them about the Bible, can't we interpret anything related to earth or that takes place on the earth? That's grounds for getting censored off of pastors' websites on YouTube. So if you ask them any questions, so there's lots of questions I ask. I'll say, well, isn't the fire in the Bible, doesn't that represent the lava flow? Censored. If you're chatting on a pastor's website, you're going to get censored. So some of the questions I'll ask, one of my favorite is, I have said, they talk about giants coming out of the mountains. so they've talked about giants coming out of the mountains and mating. Now, that's in, not only is that in religion, it's also in alien fiction as well. They said the aliens came from outer space to mate with the beautiful white goddess women. They've also said that they came out of the mountains. And well, maybe it was just someone who was holed up in the mountains and they came down out of the mountains just to find a mate of some sort. So, so he didn't like that analogy. And so what I had also said was, well, I kind of think that at one time the trees, they very well could have been thousands of feet tall, and we had a higher oxygen level, which means that we would have taller people, and maybe they came out of the mountains. I said that's realistic to think that Earth at one time had a higher oxygen level because man has plundered and pillaged the trees, and so they can't get to growing. If the trees, now there was another the person who got kicked out the day before, they and I were chatting with each other in this man's chat. And they said they believe in the canopy theory. And I'm like, oh, I get that too. The canopy theory, which means that all parts of Earth was covered by trees. I believe in that too. That every part of the dirt had was covered by trees. And so anyway, I said, well, man has just been so careless with the earth, that maybe we really did have giants at one time. The oxygen level was higher. We had more trees. And so it's just the discussion of what I discuss about, and in asking questions that are different, related to religion. They don't want to have those conversations. It's the pastors that don't want to have the conversations, and I think they don't realize that they're the ones who are going to lose out. That the younger generation does not want to participate in religion for that very reason. And so, I think it's only them. They're on TV and they have some TV stuff that they're trying to fight for, I think. I mean, because the thing is, it's like, well, pastors still have their First Amendment rights. You have your First Amendment right to go outside on a street corner and preach about something, and they do all the time. They've had their revival services, they've had them outside, they've used loudspeakers so that people hear what they're saying. And, so there's all kinds of tactics and shady tactics that pastors and religion do to people related to, they want to force their ideology onto everybody else without listening to other people's problems. Pastors do not want to talk about politics at all. So when I mentioned the penny, he held up a penny, and someone had asked him a question. They said, well, are you going to go on either side? And he says, no, when you see the side of the penny, that's me. He says, that's the line that I walk. I don't believe that. I don't believe him at all, because too many pastors, he and I raised the issue. Oh, there was something else about a woman that I raised, that he said something, and I said, well, that doesn't play out very well for women. And he's always talking about his wife, and saying is that his wife keeps him in line. It's like, well, if that was true, I bet his wife can't say a gall darn word to him. If she started bucking back against him, they would end up getting divorced. I bet you $1 to a donut that if his wife started saying anything to him, they would end up in divorce court. So So it's more of it's not even a thing, where men, they say, oh, well, women are demasculating men. No, that's not true. Women just eventually just stay quiet when they know it's a losing battle. And if they have a half-assed decent husband who's not mean to them, or, in that sense, she might keep her words to herself, but, it's like me. I don't want to participate in that. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being abused. I am. As a woman, I'm tired of being abused. I'm not interested anymore. And, I think that's the danger that these men are understanding now, especially when we have prices rising and women can't live alone. Even pastors, they can't live alone either. But yet they don't actually want to help out the broad American public. They just want to take on their private corporate governance and go along with the money that they're making and things like that. And teaching in colleges, and some of them do teach in colleges, but I think they're more, I don't know that they might not be as bad as some of the others, more radical pastors and things like that. I hope that's looking more like a mouth. Yeah, it is a little bit. I was trying to get the tongue down here, but I don't know that I'm doing so well with the tongue. That looks a lot better than what it was looking. And so yeah, so for me, I'm just completely tired of pastors. And it's that thing of, then they want to talk about football, and it's like, what does football have to do with church? I don't want to hear about football. In church they've talked about, well, my goodness, my church when I was growing up, the pastor wasn't afraid to talk about politics and religion all the time with what was going on in the Middle East. Now they don't want to talk about it. And, they were always doing something or talking about something that was out of the newspaper. Well, do pastors have to talk about what's in the newspaper? I don't know. Maybe that's their self-job preservation. They're talking about what's in the newspaper in church. And that happened all the time when I was a kid. It wasn't unusual at all. And so, are they that unoriginal that they can't come up with things on their own? They can't have a two-way dialogue with the congregation? That's what I'm wondering. No two-way dialogue with the congregation. You guys can't do that at all? I guess not. I don't think they can do that. They don't actually want to. Well, the thing is if you solved cancer and you solved war. Oh, that's key there. If you solve war and you have no war, then pastors don't have a reason to have God now, do they? Because, well, this guy yesterday, he was crazy nuts because he was saying, well, if God wants to have war, I said, well, isn't that kind of mean for God to actually get rid of his own people by the flood? And he says, well, he's God. He can do what he wants to do. And I thought, well, no, he shouldn't. He should be saving people. If God is supposed to save people and Jesus died for sins, then why in the world would God continue to let people perish when people could be saved? But yet God is just standing by and doing absolutely nothing to help people. So then it has me questioning, why do we need pastors? What do we need pastors for? Because they're preaching a false narrative. They're preaching something that they can't help people with, actually. They can't solve medical. No pastor and God is not going to solve medical issues. And a medical diagnosis is just one doctor's opinion. That's all it is, one doctor's opinion. It's the same thing like with God, one doctor's opinion. It's, well, one religious, he didn't, this guy yesterday, he did not agree with being a scholar. And he says, oh no, there's, scholars are, I said, well, did you ever think that maybe you're censoring Bible scholars from your channel? And he said, why do we need Bible scholars? Well, then he revealed that he went to Bible church. And I said, well, you don't know, even have any idea who you're even talking to on the internet. So, and I've made the analogy and comparison. I've said, I didn't bring it up to this man, but I've said, well, why should someone pay for a religious figure to actually go to college? They don't need to go to college. A Bible scholar, I don't know why the government would give money out, or maybe someone else is giving money out for Bible scholars to go to college. And that's just one person. I agree with the other people who bring up the argument and the other side of it, and they say, well, how come the Catholic Church doesn't ever release what they have? And it's just a few pastors and a few preachers who actually are controlling the narrative of what God is in the Vatican. So I mean, church is a problem. It does become a dictatorship. Without a doubt, church is a dictatorship. It's a dictatorship of the narrative. It's it's intended to control the hearts and minds of people. That's what dictatorship is controlling the hearts and minds of people and not having a two-way discussion. And and so these people don't want to question. Yeah, I know I have my own YouTube channel, and I can actually, maybe that's what I should do is, maybe I should let my picture sit here. It's looking pretty good. And then go find those questions that I asked. Maybe that's what I'll do. And at the end here, I'll tell you what the questions were, or the conversation was. Because I always like my conversations, but I like to bounce them off of other people. It's not my intentions to make them mad, but if they get mad, isn't that in their own spirit, their own being, in the essence of them? And so then they tend to take away the personal choice of someone else, and then they want to throw around this thing of, oh, it's my channel. I can do what I want to do. It's like, well, if you're a real church out in real life, then you're not going to go very far. I mean, you're not going to start a very good church by censoring people out of church. I mean, now this has been going on for quite some time. Wait a second. There's another lady here. I need to look at her. Am I subscribed to her? No. I think I have been, but I'm going to... but I want to switch over to a different account. Switch account. Let's go over, so I'm just trying to have conversations. And, then I'm also getting accused of things of being YouTube channels that I'm not. I've said, okay, well, that looks pretty good. Okay, let me go over here to the history and see the live chat history. Okay. Oh, this is one of them I put. So, let me go through this whole series of... Okay, let me go down here. Why did God destroy his own people with the flood? Is that a loving God? And so the pastors want to say God is permitted to do that because he was unhappy with his people. Well, that's what it says in the Bible. We should be able to question the Bible, but these pastors don't want to question the Bible. I put God was already judging when he destroyed his people in the water. So this pastor was saying that God is the only one that can judge, and he's supposed to come back for judgment. And I said, well, wasn't God already judging people when he destroyed his people in the water? In the flood, he was already judging them. Maybe he's not coming back, and he's already done. I rationalized that when I was a kid. And then I put here, what is the difference between reading the Bible and reading Harry Potter? I think there's no difference whatsoever. I put the word in the Christian Bible is Sharia law in disguise. The words in the Christian Bible is Sharia law in disguise. I stand solid on that foundation and thought process, because Christians cherry pick. And that's what this pastor, he calls himself a theology expert, or what was it? A Bible scholar. I guess he just calls himself a Bible scholar. And I thought, well, I can call myself a Bible scholar too. And then I put, how does God help the lame? And so now this pastor, keep in mind, does not want to talk about any politics at all. And so I have to word things in such a way so that I'm not going to get censored. But eventually he censored me anyway when I was asking these questions. These are all the questions that I was asking. How does God help the lame? I wasn't saying anything else. I said, why is God laughing at harming his own people? And then I put, so then God allowed for harm to come to his own people, and God created a sin, so God should destroy his own self. That's what I said. God should destroy his own self. He didn't like that. I put, so then you are censoring the First Amendment and freedom of speech under the guise of church and religion. Sounds about normal for false religious prophets and pastors. So apparently that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, so when I said, so then you were censoring the First Amendment and freedom of speech under the guise of church and religion, sounds about normal for false religious prophets and pastors. And so I got one more question on, I put, so why don't you shut off your comments, then just talk about your story? That's what I thought, related to this pastor. I thought, just shut your comments off so nobody can comment to him. So if he can perform so well without his audience, he should just be able to shut his comments off. Like right now, I've had nobody commenting or writing to me. And I will talk to people I have, because I feel like their opinions are important. And so that's why I will allow them to write things, there comes a point, it's like if they're just being nasty, which some people are, they're doing that to create a distraction for something else. And so it's like, for me, the ones who are tattling all the time, they're the problem. They're the problem. And so they're distracting from the host, towards the content creator is what's going on. So there is an element, I believe, of church people who have been deployed onto the internet to distract the internet and cause these problems. And I think that's what the church is doing, actually. When they go on to channels and they just start talking about random things and putting random nonsense into chats and things like that. I just think it's the church people doing it, for some reason. I don't know why. And so it's like, well, if you really wanted to have a real conversation, wouldn't you have a conversation with people or something? Or, like here, I'm trying to draw something. I'm drawing. And so I can just not pay any attention to what's being written in the comment section. Or I can pay attention and I can look at it. And it's like, okay, we've been down this path before. We're going down it again. And it's kind of the same thing. And so to be on YouTube, you've got to have a really, 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 really thick skin as far as that goes, but not so much to the point that if you're with another person who's a YouTuber, they shouldn't be physically abusing you, in that sense. So there's a lot of problems systemically in our society. Now, religion doesn't want to get involved, that's so they say, with politics. But they have no way to help people either. But yet so many of them do. And that's what these pastors, they pass it off. That's what they literally do. So I asked this guy, I said, well, how do you help people who don't have a place to live, who are homeless? Oh, well, there's services out there. It's like, no, there's not. Oh, yes, there is in my state. And they all say the same thing. It's like, that I should have asked him if he has ever checked it out for himself. Have you? A lot of them will say no, they haven't. They've never, they won't do it. They won't call up and find out that the services don't exist. I think because they already know the services don't exist. But they don't want to get involved with politics for some reason. I don't know why. And I find that kind of funny. Why do these spiritual people not want to get involved with politics? So there's something about them that they just don't want to get involved with politics. Why is that? Why don't they want to get involved with politics? Then their gig will be up for whatever it is that they're doing. That's what I'm thinking. Because they're doing something that is not right. That's what I'm thinking. They're up to some shenanigans or something, or they're benefiting in some way. I have to wonder how many pastors are on food stamps. Does anyone know? I mean, I know they said the pastor has to rely on the Affordable Care Act in order to get medical for his family. I know that came out recently that they were saying there was one pastor who, I guess he must have finally cried uncle, and he said that in order for him to keep preaching, that he has to do the Affordable Care Act. Now, there was someone else they were talking about with the Affordable Care Act. They were saying that I don't know how they afforded this, and the politicians said the same thing. They said that they were paying like $13,000 a month for their family for medical. Now, I've never heard of that, but that's what they said. They were paying $13,000 a month for medical. Can you believe that? This was on C-SPAN. They were talking about that. They said, well, we'll see how long that lasts. So it sounded like that their insurance was going to go up higher. Now, I don't know who does that, who pays $13,000 a month for medical insurance, and they can afford that even at this point in time. Because I know for me, when medical, I thought $400 a month was too expensive when the Affordable Care Act first came out. I thought $400 a month was too expensive. I really did. It's like, so that's just a Wall Street thing, and they're being greedy. That's all that's happening. That's with every aspect, and people are going to have to remember that in the future. I know sometimes maybe we tend to forget things, but the younger generation is going to have to stop blaming the older generation for doing it and realize that it's Wall Street, the private sector, the corporations who are actually causing these problems upon the American public. The government contractors are also allowing it to happen because they just tend to look the other way. Government contractors are politicians. They're under a contract for a period of time that they're that politician, and they're allowing it to happen. Unfortunately, they're going to have to start listening to the American public and doing the work for the American people, because what's going on right now is just not working. And people in the American public are being harmed, and they're allowing it to happen. And they're not doing things for everyone, for the whole American public, to actually help people who need help and include everyone who needs help, instead of breaking it out. And it's ridiculous to think, oh, open enrollment again in the fall. It's like, well, why? Why do we have to have an open enrollment in the fall, one time a year? I mean, there might be other times of the year that you might need medical insurance other than just once a year and enroll at this certain time. That's ridiculous. That's the very narrow thing of, okay, well, if you don't get enrolled in this time, then you don't get it. Well, that's ridiculous. That's kind of a dictator move right there. That's what I think. So I don't know. This whole thing to me is ridiculous. What they got going on. It's like, if it would be like, okay, so you had a baby in April, and you can't get insurance for the baby. Oh no, we'll make an exception for the baby. But someone loses their job, so the Fed chair keeps saying too, he said, bless his heart today, he said that they are lowering the rate, but they still expect the private sector to raise things by 2%. So the private sector is not bringing prices down. They said other parts of the economy will bring prices down, but the Fed chair right now is separating things. He's separating things and saying there's several segments of the economy. he said some parts are just going to keep raising prices higher, and he says there's other parts that will bring prices down drastically, because otherwise they just go out of business. That's what he said. They'll just go out of business completely because things get too hard for the business. And then they can't survive. The business can't survive. So I'm thinking that the person that one of the Congress people was referencing could have been a business or a small business that had like, I'm going to say like maybe 25 people on their staff if they were paying $13,000 a month for what they call their family. Because I know Disney and some of these media places and churches tend to call each other family. It's like, well, family is very subjective when it comes down to it, because you're really not a family. You want to call yourself a family and say you're spreading love, doing all this crap, but then you don't want to listen to people who are legitimately homeless and help people who are legitimately homeless. And you'd rather help people who are outside of the United States than help people inside of your own country. That's the thing I'm really frustrated with, is the fact that you'd rather help people outside of the United States and other countries, not help people inside of the United States who literally need help, who are homeless, who are seniors. Well, it doesn't matter whether you're a senior citizen or you're a 17-year-old who is homeless. Doesn't matter now, does it? None of us can afford a place to live. And you guys aren't listening, and you're not helping us. And so, yeah, this is the two-faced religion. I mean, to me, it's more of devil and devil. But, you know, this guy kind of looks, yeah, we bunked him up a little bit more to look a little bit more evil. But, oh, he looks a little bit like, he looks a little bit like the guy that's by the dumpster fire thing, too, a little bit. Why did I just have a style that takes me towards that dumpster fire guy a little bit for some reason. He really does. I'm going to have to get my dumpster fire image out. Maybe that's just the style that happens and takes place when I'm looking at. Now this guy, he's not really. He just looks like a monster looks, you know. So. Well, I guess there I'm off my soapbox now. So we'll see you guys the next time.